So you want to be a recycling something, huh?
Mm,
Maybe a specialist. Like you're sorting out more than just your blue bin at home.
It's definitely more involved than that.
That's why we're diving into this RoleCatcher guide for recycling specialists today.
Great choice. It's a career path with a lot more to it than people realize.
More than just knowing which bin to toss your banana peel in, I'm guessing.
Way more. It's about understanding the whole system.
So what does a recycling specialist actually do all day? This RoleCatcher guide makes it sound pretty interesting, actually.
It is. It's really dynamic. You could be researching local recycling policies one day.
Oh, wow. So there's like a policy angle to all this?
Absolutely. And then the next day, you might be out on the floor showing new hires how to sort materials or even like advocating for new recycling technologies. It's a pretty diverse job.
That's way different from what I pictured. I thought it was all about, knowing the different types of plastics and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it, of course. But there's also a huge emphasis on communication, being able to explain things clearly, and even, problem solving. This RoleCatcher guide even mentioned policy analysis.
Problem solving. What kind of problems are we talking about? Like when someone throws a whole pizza box in the recycling.
Huh. Sometimes, yeah. But more like figuring out how to improve recycling rates in a community or how to make sure a certain material is actually getting recycled properly.
So it's more strategic than I thought. Do you need a PhD to do this kind of work?
You definitely don't need a PhD. The guide actually lists a bunch of different degrees that could be a good fit. Environmental science is obviously up there, but they also had some more unexpected ones, like urban planning.
Urban planning.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with recycling?
Well, think about it. When they're designing cities, they have to consider how waste management is going to work, where the recycling facility is going to go, how can they make it easy for people to recycle.
Yeah, that makes sense. What were some of the other unexpected degrees they mentioned?
Business administration was another one. Someone's got to crunch the numbers, right? Figure out pricing for recycled materials, things like that.
Wow. So you'd be like a recycling entrepreneur.
Exactly. There are a lot of different paths you can take in this field.
The guide did mention some downsides, though, right? Like in the pros and cons section. I remember reading about the physical demands of the job, potential exposure to hazardous materials. That part didn't sound too fun.
Yeah, it's not always glamorous, that's for sure. But, if you're someone who likes to be hands-on, who enjoys a challenge, and who really truly cares about making a difference, it could be a really good fit.
So it's not all rainbows and perfectly sorted recyclables.
Definitely not.
But for the right person, it sounds like a career with a lot of potential, maybe even job security. After all, everyone seems to be talking about going green these days.
Now more than ever.
Job security, Andy, you're helping the planet. Not bad. But what about actually moving up in this field? I mean, you don't start at the top, right?
Definitely not. But this RoleCatcher guide actually lays out a pretty clear career path, which I thought was cool.
Oh, so there's like a ladder you can climb. Tell me more about that. Where do most aspiring recycling specialists even start?
Well, the guide mentions this entry-level position, recycling assistant. It sounds like you'd be doing a lot of the groundwork, like assisting with research and maybe getting some hands-on experience with the actual recycling process.
Okay, so not exactly calling the shots yet.
Right.
But learning the ropes.
Exactly. And then, as you get more experience, you might become a recycling coordinator.
Okay, so what does a coordinator actually do?
Coordinating.
Naturally.
They're more involved in the day-to-day operations, coordinating programs, coming up with ways to improve things, maybe even supervising staff, that kind of thing.
Got it. Got it. So you're moving from the sidelines to more of a leadership role. What comes after that?
This is where it gets interesting. The guide highlights the waste management specialist role as a natural next step.
Ooh, waste management specialist. Sounds kind of official?
Right. And at this level, you're actually developing and implementing waste management policies. You're conducting audits to make sure everything's running smoothly, making sure everything's up to code.
So you're not just sorting the recycling anymore. You're like shaping how an entire organization handles its waste.
Exactly. You've got real influence.
Now, that's what I call making a real difference. This is sounding less like trash talk and more like sustainability strategizing.
Love that. And for those who are really ambitious, it seems like the peak of this career path, at least according to this guide, is senior recycling manager.
Senior recycling manager. Has a nice ring to it. What do those folks do?
They're like the CEOs of sustainability.
Wow.
They're coming up with long-term recycling strategies, overseeing all the different programs, managing teams, and probably working directly with the higher-ups to champion these sustainable practices.
So you've gone from sorting through yesterday's news, to shaping tomorrow's best practices. I like it. But let's say I'm sold on this whole recycling specialist path. I imagine the competition for these jobs is pretty fierce, right? What can I do to stand out from the crowd?
That's such a good question. And luckily, the RoleCatcher guide had some advice for that too. They had this whole section on interview prep, questions to expect.
Oh, I love those kinds of things. What kind of questions are we talking about?
Well, they weren't your typical generic interview questions. These ones really made you think about the complexities of the field. Like, one that stood out to me was, how do you ensure that recycling programs are accessible to all members of a community?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Right. It's not just about knowing how to recycle, it's about making sure everyone can participate.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. What other kinds of questions did they ask?
Another one was about managing conflicts or challenges that come up during the recycling process. Because, not everyone is as gung-ho about sorting their cardboard from their plastics as we might be.
Oh, tell me about it. I swear I had this whole debate with my neighbor last week about whether pizza boxes could be recycled.
Really?
Yeah. Spoiler alert. They can't, at least not where we live. But it just goes to show you there's a lot of room for miscommunication.
Totally. And employers want to know that you can handle those conversations with, diplomacy.
Yeah.
That you've got the knowledge to back it up and that you're a problem solver.
Right. So you're not just a recycling expert, you're also a recycling educator and a mediator. Who knew?
It's a multifaceted role, that's for sure. And while experience and passion are, of course, super important, the guide also mentioned that certifications can be a great way to boost your resume.
Certifications, yes.
Yeah.
It's like getting that official stamp of approval, right?
Exactly.
So it's not just about having the degree, it's about proving you've got the skills and the knowledge to do the job. What kind of certifications are we talking about here?
They mentioned a few different ones. There's the Elite Green Associate, which is more focused on sustainable building practices. And then there's the Solid Waste Association of North America's Recycling Systems Manager certification.
Okay, so one's about eco-friendly building design, and the other's more about the nitty-gritty of managing a recycling system. Got it. Any others?
The last one they highlighted was the Certified Recycling Professional Credential, or CRP.
Okay, CRP. And what's that one all about?
That one's globally recognized and covers a broad range of recycling knowledge.
So you could go the sustainable architecture route, you could master the operational side of things, or you could become like a well-rounded recycling expert.
Pretty much. It's like choosing your character class in a video game.
Love that analogy. So we've talked about the day-to-day tasks, the career progression, interview prep, even certifications. What else did this RoleCatcher guide reveal about the wild world of recycling specialists? So much good stuff in this guide. It's amazing how much there is to learn about recycling. What other insider tips did this RoleCatcher guide have? Did anything else stand out to you?
Oh, definitely. They talked a lot about the importance of networking.
Networking, you mean like going to industry events and stuff?
Yep. Conferences, online forums, joining professional organizations, even just connecting with people on LinkedIn.
Okay, so it's not just about what you know, it's also who you know.
It can make a big difference, especially in a field that's always changing, like recycling.
Yeah.
New technologies, new approaches. You got to stay ahead of the curve.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Your next amazing job opportunity could be a conversation away at a recycling conference. Who knows? Well, I'm adding professional networking to my to-do list right now. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of recycling specialists, what are your final takeaways from this RoleCatcher guide? What should our listeners really remember if they're thinking about this career path?
This guide really highlighted the fact that recycling is more than just a job. It's a growing field and one that has the potential to, really make a difference. And as more and more companies and organizations prioritize sustainability, skilled recycling specialists are going to be in high demand.
It's almost like a career with built-in job security. Everyone wants to go green these days.
Exactly. And it's not just about working for big corporations either. I mean, think about it. Schools, hospitals, local governments, they all need people who understand how to create and manage sustainable practices, especially when it comes to waste.
You could be shaping policy, designing eco-friendly systems, educating the next generation of recyclers. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
They really are.
So for our listeners out there who are passionate about the environment, looking for a career with, purpose and potential, becoming a recycling specialist might be the perfect fit.
I think so too. And this RoleCatcher guide is a fantastic place to start.
Absolutely. And for those who want to learn even more, we'll be sure to link to it in the show notes. Any final words of wisdom for our budding recycling gurus out there?
Don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty. Ask lots of questions. And never underestimate your power to make a difference.
I love that. Passion, curiosity, and a little bit of elbow grease. Sounds like a recipe for success to me. Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with me. I feel so much more informed and inspired.
It was my pleasure. I'm always happy to talk about recycling.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration. Until then, keep those recycling bins sorted and those minds curious.